Okay, so this is the back view of the cast. We did the front view. And so now I'm going to move into doing a nice painting of the back. It's a really nice cast. Like I said, this is one of my favorites that I have. Again, it pales in comparison to the original, but you know, we're going to do what we can with what we got, and that's what we always have to do because there is no perfect training regimen. There's shades of perfect, and as we get further into training, we're going to realize that it's as much about improvisational learning as it is about structured learning. It's about learning how to dig deep and think outside the box and learn creative things in creative ways, and that's what we're really after. We're after learning how to think, learning how to problem solve, not formulaically learning things, which everyone's so inclined to want to do because it's more consistent, or it feels more consistent, even though it's more of an illusion, because the reality of it is most real learning occurs in a different realm. It's not formulaic, it's more reflecting upon other things that were learned and cross-referencing and stuff. So, all right, let's just kind of keep this straightforward. Let's see if we can get in here and just stay on point. I'll try not to banter too philosophically, hopefully. I mean, you know me by now. It's kind of hard for me not to do, but it's all good stuff. I'm trying to inspire you guys, excite you guys to, you know, get up for the game, fight the good fight. It's all about balance. Okay, look at that. So we got that all covered. It's black with a little bit of phthalo blue. This one looks like it's a little heavier on black. You know, when you mix the things, sometimes it dominates on one or the other. It doesn't really matter. I like when it goes kind of in between in places. So once we've got that in, and I should do this, you know, break. I don't know why I don't, but it always is a hassle to kind of let it set up for a second, and there's no real. The nice thing about this SourceTech canvas is that it's fairly absorbent, and so you can already see that, you know, on the Masonite or some of the other surfaces we've used, I would probably have just scrubbed out to white almost. But with this one, it's already taking into the surface really nicely, which makes it easier and faster to get into the fun stuff. So it's got a nice tint over it. It's got a nice projection drawing that's been really kind of, I kind of spent a lot of time designing outside and underneath. You know, I kind of did a little sketch and I projected my sketch and then I went back and I freehanded most of this just to get the placement really fast on there. Then it's about building it up. I want you guys to freehand yours for now. And you know, later you can use opaque projectors for all kinds of stuff. They're not evil. They just need to be handled with really discreet care because it's not an excuse for not knowing how to draw. I want you to not fall victim to that. All right, let me see here. I'm looking for the right brush to start this guy with. Yeah, it's pretty soupy in there, so I'm going to try to move to a little different area and make sure that, you know, that you can see that. I think everything's good. So, I'm just mixing, you know, using my convenience puddles. It helps to speed up the process. Now the back will, in some ways, will be easier than the front. The head is a little less complex. The hair still got lots of twists and turns, but it's not, you know, that front view with that head tilt was just sobering. You know, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, that's a toughie. So I start just with an area of dark, and I look at it and I assess the darkness of it. And I'm not going to come in exact. I'm going to come in, you know, just with the dark. And I'm going to work down my core, and I'm going to be respectful of the fact that I created a really nice template. And there's no reason in creating a nice template if you're not going to follow it to some degree, right? So we got to be kind of careful as we come down our cores, because I've created all these really beautiful core edges. And part of it is when I create a grid like that, I'm memorizing the problem a little bit. I'm solving the problem as I'm drawing. And I've talked about this before. And a lot of people are very surprised when they see how intricate my drawings are for my paintings that are quite Fetchinesque, quite loose, gestural. But underneath that is a very controlled drawing. And that's one of the things I loved about Fetchin, and I still will always talk about him about this, is just his virtuoso level of planning and preparation and drawing ability. Even though he disguised it, not deliberately, but I don't think, but disguised, you know, almost hard to know how good of a draftsman he really was if you just casually look at his work, because it's really advanced. I mean, extremely advanced, layering. And so, but a lot of times, from what I understand, he worked very slowly and methodically, and it wasn't slapdash fast the way it kind of appears to a layman, as you're just looking at it and viewing it, you think, well, that must have been done in a half an hour or an hour, a couple hours or something. I don't believe that was the case, So sometimes heavy prep frees you up to be able to be looser and more relaxed on your finished pass through the project, whether it's a portrait painting or landscape or whatever. Just keep that in mind for future reference as you get into more complicated painting scenarios down the road with me, and also outside of here when you're doing your own stuff. All right, so just attacking the painting, trying to cover it quickly and efficiently. Okay, just working around, assessing, mixing, trying to get my puddles, to where I can hit them, pretty quickly and efficiently. Now down around the gluteal area here, we have some bumps and undulations, and it helps if you know what those are, and that's the medius and the maximus, the big butt muscle and the small butt muscle. There's also the minimus, but we're not going to deal with that one because it's pretty deep. But good to know. I mean, it's just good to know these things. It gives you a confidence with your design that's hard to explain. It's hard to tell someone what confidence just knowing certain things will give you. And sometimes it's just about that. It's just about general confidence, and being able to carry that through in your work. And you can tell a confident brushstroke versus a timid brushstroke. You can tell when someone's painting well and painting confidently, and when someone's painting timid and on defensive posture. The great paintings just display a certain confidence that's just undescribable. I mean, not undescribable, but you can't argue with it. You just look at it and go, man, that person looks like they were in command of their medium, in command of their thought process and their creative process on that one. Those are fun paintings to look at. They really can juice you up quite a bit. Never let great efforts depress you. You've gone to some shows where you just go, really? I mean, like, wow. Like Sorolla. I bumped into the Sorolla show in Spain when I was over there teaching a workshop a couple years back. And I didn't even know what was going on. I just happened to, buddy told me about it on the way back home. So, oh yeah, you should stop by and check out the Sorolla show over at the Prada. Oh yeah, cool, I guess I'll go, I'm gonna be in Madrid, you might as well go over there. So I went over there, and that thing just floored me. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, probably I wouldn't say by far, but the best show I've ever seen. Just the magnitude of the work, the strength of the work, the confidence. Talking about looking at a painting and going, wow, that's a confident painter. It's hard to beat Sorolla on bravura brushwork and just really confident, execution. I mean, of the highest level, cattle coming out of the water, 8 feet canvas, painted from life or whatever. I mean, it just makes your head spin. But yeah, you really have to kind of assess after seeing efforts like that. You kind of reassess, what your level of ability to handle complex scenarios or events like that, or how to paint even how would you even approach painting like that. But it does make you reassess your career aspirations. It kind of rocks you to the core in a good way. It helps. It doesn't mean I'm going to go quit. It just means I'm more respectful of the level I'm at, and I'm more respectful of the level he's at, and I'm able to see it with clarity, rather than through a skewed sense of where I'm at. And if you're thinking you're better than you are or worse than you are, you're really hurting yourself greatly, because you can't grow when you're in those kind of positions. If you're too hard on yourself, then you've got a serious problem. And if you're not hard enough on yourself and you think you're just really hot, then you got maybe even a bigger problem. It's important to see with clarity where you're at in the big picture of your development. And in order to do that, we have to constantly see shows like that or be exposed to outstanding efforts so that we can reflect upon our own efforts and then say, okay, yeah, I need to go back and learn a little bit more because that was amazing. I mean, that really sobers you up and in such a good way. So try to go see those shows when they come around. I know they're hard to see. I know sometimes you never have the money, you never have the time. You're always, burning the candle at both ends and, this and that. And, but man, if it comes anywhere near you, do whatever you can to go see them because they can change the course of your life as an artist. They really can. Sargent Show was really influential on me years ago. The retrospective in New York, it was actually in Washington, D.C. that I saw it. The Mucha Show, Alphonse Mucha, the Sorolla Show, all those were very instrumental in getting me to just think about where I'm going and what direction I want to go in. And, you can't put a value on that, really. So try to get out there and see some of those if you can. Okay, just filling in edges. Reflected light coming down, again, down the torso. I'm going to do the same thing as last time. I'm going to paint this thing in, and then at break, I'll fill in the background and get it all popping and going good so I can prepare for the finish. But, I'm covering it pretty quick and pretty efficiently, it feels like already. It's mostly because again, this is like my fifth painting today, so I'm warmed up. If I'm not going to be warmed up by now, then I'm not going to be warmed up, period. So it better have happened by now. I mix my puddle. I'm just mixing from those convenience colors and values more than anything, and they're really so helpful. To take a few seconds to pre-mix your values. If you don't have time and you come into class late, just dump out your black, white, and blue and go at it and mix them on the fly. That's good practice every once in a while too. Just to see how fast and well you're mixing with the actual palette. You can go between the two at your discretion. Just around the rear. Got a lot of reflected light coming up underneath. Down here, around the butt, as it's seated on this, obviously whatever it is, but I mean on the platform here that we are dealing with. So we can start, again, right now, the painting will kind of take on somewhat of a topographic map feel where you're basically just putting tiles up next to other tiles. The key is you want to fluctuate the width and the spatial width, mostly the width of those tiles as you butt them up against each other. If you just put them all down with equal thickness, then it really does start looking like ridiculously topographic. And we don't want that look, I don't think. That's not my favorite look. So fluctuate and vary the values as you stack them up next to each other along the form, whatever form that may be, whether it's up in the shoulder girdle, or not shoulder girdle, but the rotator cuff area in the back of the shoulder here that I'm working around, where we have the teres major, the infraspinatus, teres minor. Got a whole grouping of complex. That's a very tough area too. The neck's tough, like we talked about in the last one, and man, up around the back and here and around the scapula region, it can be really dicey and difficult to navigate. Beautiful bone, if there is such a thing. The actual scapula, it's really elegantly designed. I know it sounds funny to talk about bones in that context, but if you think about them as engineering pieces, like pieces of machinery almost, where you've got muscles and ligaments and pulleys and levers and the body working in unison to create locomotion and protection for the vital organs and things of that sort. It's amazing. The bones are like so cool. And a lot of people always think of it as being very macabre, just because bones over the years represent death and this and that, and everybody's got them, and everybody freaks out about talking about them or looking at them or drawing them. And I think I just like them. I think they're really cool to draw. And when you start seeing how the muscles attach and create this orchestration of movement and protection, like I said, because that's what the bones are, either for locomotion or protection. And that's the two major functions of them. And the skeleton is just incredibly efficient, incredibly efficient. So I'm basically just budding this value. And the reason I'm jumping around a little much is because I'm looking for places to use this particular value. And again, I hope I'm not driving Eric crazy, but he's my videographer here. But I'm going around trying to find places to plug it. And most of them are going to be kind of around where I'm at here in this region right now. And then I'll work up in another region. But yeah, so you can see how it's kind of building its way towards the lighter passages. Start down here, and I'm going to plug in. Again, I'm not looking for my hot spots. I'm not looking for those highlights. I'm working underneath them. I'll pop those on when the time's right, towards the end. But right now, I'm kind of coming in and filling in a lot of the gaps with, like, it's a light value, but it's not that light. On the scale 0 to 10, 10 being white, it's like a 6, maybe. Somewhere around there, maybe a 7, 6.5, somewhere in there. Values can be bent a little bit. Edges can be bent as well. They don't like a lot of bending. They don't like to be bent all over the place, but a little bit of bending is doable with these concepts. So you don't have to come in exactly right. You just need to come in close. You can't be off 2 or 3 steps on the value chain. That's too much. So you want to be within like 0.5% off or something of the value, and you can probably still let it ride, and you can punch up edges a little bit too, and you can be off a little bit of a percentage there, and it's not going to probably kill you. But it kind of is what it is. You just exact is really hard to do. And it takes a lot of time. And again, a lot of my training was done in the trenches of demoing. And I grew a lot as a teacher in my early 20s, exactly. Early 20s, 21, 22, 23. And I was teaching a lot during those times, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, in my 20s and 20 to 30 probably. And then, I've been teaching a lot. It's ridiculous. Started so young. That I have to almost pinch myself when I start thinking about it. And I'm really happy I did start that young in a lot of ways, but it did shape me in good and bad ways. A lot of my learning was done through demonstration. And we know demonstration is speed-driven, fast painting, which is maybe incredibly fast painter, but maybe my value renditions maybe could be tuned up a little bit. I don't know. I work at a pretty high level now, subtly, but and capable of it. But it was just, I think more than anything, it was hard on me to learn that way. Because again, a lot of times you're stuck having to, you really can't come in and do a bad painting very often when you're a teacher. People don't pay to see you mess up. And that's a lot of pressure. I'm down the rear here. So that's a lot of pressure for someone to handle. And you still want to be able to mess up so you can grow. And in order to grow, you have to mess up. So it's this kind of weird conundrum that you get yourself into as a teacher. And I'm kind of talking to you teachers out there, and those of you who want to be teachers maybe. A lot of people just look at it and say, oh, it looks fun, I'm not really good enough to be a professional painter, so I guess I'll teach because it's a good way to make some money, and I can make money and paint and learn. To some degree, yeah, but man, you will sacrifice a lot teaching at a high level if you're going to do that. And you'll have to give up some of your individuality. You'll have to give up a lot of stuff, and it will not be just a free ride. It's really can be very detrimental if you teach at the wrong time in the wrong manner. So be careful. That's just a warning for those of you who think it's an easy way out or a quick way to make a buck. It's not. It's one of the hardest ways to make a buck. So if it's in your heart to do it, and you're an avid teacher and a soulful teacher and someone that really is meant to teach, you'll know it and you'll do really good at it. But it's getting harder and harder for teachers that aren't incredibly good to make it, because it's just like anything else, it's getting more competitive. There's better people out there. There's more people that are teaching that are really good. And so I'm going to be back up in the shoulder area here. And that's kind of tough. It just is really tough out there, and people are now they're starting to understand what a good teacher is, and they're starting to see a little bit more of it, and they're starting to key in. And so it's harder to teach unless you teach at that virtuoso level, I think. I've even witnessed it. My atelier is so seasoned, and all of our guys are so good. But the expectations of people coming in now at workshops and stuff, because there's been a lot of online learning, different things happening, and people are just better, and they expect more, and they deserve more. So you can either can keep up and deliver more for them, or they don't study with you, or and they shouldn't probably. So it's interesting. So something to think about for aspiring teachers and stuff. And again, having taught so long and so intensely, I think I have a lot to say about it and a lot to share in that arena. Working my way down the back, chugging along, putting in my little lighter passages, biting them up next to other tiles. Try not to do too much blending right now, but move most of my form with juxtapositions of value and shape and edge. And I think it's working pretty good. Again, it's making quick work of a difficult problem. I'm going to be back up in this shoulder on the right now. So I take a look, I assess, I load my brush. I'm working my way up to my light passages, but this is still not, it looks light, but it's not as light as the highlights that are on that back. So I'm still underneath my range. Okay. Twist, turn, load the brush. Go back down, plug in the tile. Remember, tile's just a shape that represents a piece of anatomy, a cartilage, bone protrusion. Could be anything, but it's a shape. And the shape, when you put down brush strokes, they're going to either create a shape that you deliberately intended, or it's going to create a shape that you didn't intend. So continuing to plug in my small tiles here, and again, they're pretty light value. I'm up at the pretty much right underneath the highlights, and trying to kind of skirt along and just create small shapes that look like they have integrity and actually represent something. And again, sometimes you have to make heads or tails out of ambiguous small shapes on the figure that are hard to discern what they actually even are. But most of them, again, the more you get comfortable with your anatomy, the more you'll be able to navigate these forms with a little bit less effort, and it won't be as daunting for you. So the main thing right now is just stay calm and controlled and relaxed. If you don't know a lot about anatomy, then paint what you see, and again, be okay with that. You do an incredibly good painting, just painting what you see. So don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm going to be working my way down this corridor, so now I'm down in this area. I definitely see pluses and minuses to both sides of the argument, and it's interesting to me because I am such an inventor, and I've collected so much knowledge and so much repetition, way more than most people, because of how much I've taught and how much I've spent absorbing, almost to a ludicrous level. And I say that only because I'm kind of OCD, literally, and I obsessively can obsess about things at a high level, which gives me incredible concentration for repetitious things, and I don't bore with repetition at all. And it served me well. It's been difficult in my life in other ways, but I have managed to really direct it in such a way that it's given me incredible skills. But it's an interesting mindset, and it's an interesting way of thinking. And a lot of people just think, oh, it's obsessive compulsive. That means you do weird tics and do weird things. I don't really do that. I obsess about things like studying anatomy, art, and I find myself just being able to tackle huge, crazy projects with lots of repetitious enthusiasm because of the way my mind works. Now, not everybody's going to have a mindset as driven as that or as like that. And you can't really wish that upon somebody or even train somebody to have a mind like that. It's just the way somebody's wired. Sometimes you just have to accept the fact that some people are wired differently than other people, and good and bad, right? And we have to be okay with that. You know, I've learned to accept the fact that I'm wired a certain way, and I was at a certain age. Didn't understand it until way later in life, how that wiring actually affects me. But am thankful and also have had a hard time sometimes dealing with that because it is a very interesting mindset. Hard on the people around you because you're so intense, you can burn everyone right into the tarmac, including your teachers, your students, because of how intense you are. And so for me, I've learned to kind of find a bit of a balance there, and I'm continuing to work with that. But everybody has their little things they've got to deal with. Some people are just lazy and fundamentally procrastinators. And, you know, that's a bad quality, you know, if you want to try to perfect something. You know, you have to ultimately be able to follow through and do this stuff, you know, day in and day out to get really good at it. So I wouldn't expect you to follow my pace. It may not be healthy for you. It's probably not that healthy for me sometimes. I'm going to go back up to the hair a little bit and fill that in because it's, you know, sitting up there and it's not covered yet, and I'm covering everything else. So I might as well go up and just do what I did last time and posterize it out with simplification, posterization. So anyway, a little insight into me. You know, I'm a fast thinker, man. Fast and process fast and move fast and think fast and talk fast. And, you know, over time, I'm trying to learn through balance to like do things like Tai Chi and meditation and things that can calm and slow me down so that I'm not always working in that hyper elevated state, which is, you know, I think good. So I'll try to temper it periodically so I don't drive you guys crazy with my banter, but you kind of know where it's coming from a little bit now. Let's see. So I'm up here filling in little hair shapes. As I look at the hair shapes in the photo and also on the little cast in front of me, I kind of am quickly cross-referencing the two, looking for things that the photo didn't pick up. Plus, you know, do I want to add it? Do I want to subtract it? Is it necessary? I'm only using one color right now, light and dark. Well, two colors, I mean, two values. And I'm trying to distill it down into a very simple, as simple as I can, because that's a really, like I said, that's really dauntingly difficult hair, you know. So, you know, you want a small round brush that you can get into those little nooks and crannies. Pressure sensitivity, you know, pushing in, pulling out, expanding and contracting your strokes accordingly as necessary. There's a little reflected light down here that kind of working through. Okay. And this side over in here is a little more shadow driven, so I'll just move my puddle into a little bit darker, pick up some of it next to it. Now, the hard thing is going to be getting, well, the differentiation between the grayscale that I put in originally and these little light passages. They're cutting so close in value, or they're starting to, that they're almost disappearing into each other. It's good and bad. So I think it's probably close to fine. Maybe go a little bit lighter so that I can, you know, because a lot of reflected bounce light heading up into that hair on that left side. You will feel it in your wrist though. I mean, so be careful, stretch your hands and wrist periodically throughout the day. You know, just kind of do it in a doorway or against a wall or something. Just kind of stretch your fingers and push against the wall and let your fingers kind of stretch out, because the tendons will get a little bit fatigued, but it's not the end of the world. It's not going to kill you. Just could have a sore hand a little bit, but that'll strengthen with more use and time. So don't get too freaked out by it. Pretty much covered. Got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to get this little section in here, and then I'm going to start doing some finesse in here. And then I'm going to cover the background or the dark background during the break. Then I'll come back and I'll finish it off, and it probably won't take as long as the front view. It doesn't look like. So this one might take, I don't know, 70, 80 minutes, 60 minutes, 70 minutes, I don't know, somewhere in there. Let's see. So that down there, very dark in the photo, a lot lighter in reality. But again, it's because I have all that fill light. It'll probably go somewhere in between the two. knowing that the background is going to be kind of black. Ultimately, I want to drop the value between this piece I'm painting right now and the background pretty close so that it almost disappears into each other. I just think it's a nice look. Using the side of a bristle filbert. Just trying to send a massage it in there. I made quick work of that. So now I'm looking around and I'm thinking, okay, I've got this thing posterized in. I used a technique of getting the darks in and then working my way systematically towards the lights, putting small shapes next to other shapes as I worked my way transitioning. And it makes sense, right? Because it's going to obviously go from darker to lighter to lighter to lighter to the highlights. And so you can work kind of very systematically that way. Almost looks like a digital painting at that stage. And again, there's nothing wrong with digital painting. A lot of people get, I think, the wrong sense that I'm really anti-digital painting. I just prefer to paint manually. And I think most people do. But, you know, in today's marketplace, it's really handy. I'm going to go up towards the shoulder, left shoulder. It's handy to be able to know these different things, digital. And digital is faster in some ways, the learning curve is faster. So a lot of people gravitate towards, a lot of the young guys gravitate towards it. And those of you out here that are doing this program that are digital painters, I applaud you for taking the time to go back and start learning the manual aspect of painting, because ultimately you will probably want to venture out of that realm into something that's maybe more driven by originals, whether it's, you know, selling your stuff at LexCon or some con where you want to sell your original content paintings and make some extra money on the side, or, you know, a lot of people want to sell originals. I mean, it's what most artists like to do. Digital is great, but it's never going to be an original painting, and as a result, it's never going to command the price, and it's also not going to command the respect. It just won't. It's great for work. You know, it's great to get your job done quick. It's great to please an art director that you can make lots of changes very effortlessly and quickly. And so there's wonderful, wonderful aspects to digital, and you can never argue it. It's just another great medium that's come along, just like the camera when it first came out or anything like that. But let's not get so, whether you're a digital painter or a traditional painter, you should not badmouth either camp. I mean, it's not all or nothing. It's more about finding a balance between the two so that you can have your cake and eat it too. You can do your professional work fast, but you can also turn around and sell your original afterwards. And you get the added benefit of doing an original, which is a lot funner from an artistic standpoint. Most people would agree that executing on a surface like a canvas is a lot more pleasurable than sitting on a Wacom tablet or on a Cintiq and grinding away as your eyeballs are about to pop out of your head from using the computer for too long. And your hands hurting, and there's all kinds of stuff that it's not very ergonomically correct. You know, not all paintings, most paintings not ergonomically very good, but the whole, I talked to a lot of my friends and they're just reeling over their eyeballs are bugging them and they're staring at a screen all day, and you know, it's just hard. But for those of you who are doing it out there, keep doing it. It's a great way to make a living. It's a great tool. And then add to that your ability to do this stuff so that you can have the best of both worlds. And I know a few guys that are starting to do that. And most of the really good guys I admire are doing that and are kind of really well-rounded individuals. And it's just really fun to watch them. And I really have a great affinity for visual development concepting. I've done a ton of it. I love it. It's a huge part of me still misses that quite a bit because I don't do it as much as I used to. But maybe someday, you know, peck around a little bit again on it. My dad's a really great concept ability. You know, it's really fun to watch what he comes up with, a lot of stuff that he does. It's really, really fun to look at. So I'm skirting down these edges. I'm starting to massage them. As I massage them, they start to soften. The form starts to roll better. I also sacrifice a little bit of the punchy edge work, which I want to probably ultimately try to get back into the image. So I'm just kind of playing around right now, manipulating edges. The key is to manipulate, not be manipulated by. So I want the edges, I want to be able to manipulate the edges. I don't want them manipulating me. Now within this confines of this shadow area, there's a lot of reflected light that's playing up against the multifidus, which is the erector spinae muscles, which are the large elongated muscles that run up the side of your spine. And he's got a really big one right in here. And it's really pronounced, and I can really see it up on the actually as I cross-reference with the more well-lit version of the actual cast. I really can see that bulbous shape that's hidden right underneath the sheathing of the latissimus. Those are deep muscles, but they're muscles that come to the surface and have to be dealt with because the latissimus down across around its attachment area of the iliac crest or the pelvic bone is quite thin, and it creates a very a thin area where you can actually see some ribs come through. You can see the multifidus, depending on the development of the person's back. And this guy's built like a tank. You know, I mean, he's a strong, you know, has that strong, really strong body type. And so that the back muscles are really pronounced and well developed. Little reflected light down in the furrow. I'm going to go back over here a little bit and continue to massage, trying to minimize my jumping around. Let's see. Okay, right now it's just about picking the right brushes to do the delicate blending that we need. I switched over to a little larger filbert. The other one just seemed like it was taking me an awful long time to do certain things. So I'm going to play around a little bit with this, but this is going to be a little bulbous and big for certain things I need to do. So you may see me jumping between the two quite often, or a couple different versions of brushes. Squinting down, looking at the reference in front of me, cross-referencing my knowledge base, thinking about what do I want to do, what should I do, what's the best thing to do. All these things are close on my mind right now as far as how I'm digesting and perceive, the things I perceive, the information that I'm perceiving. Dancing along the core shadow that's running along the rear and the quad and the outside of your lateralis, the lateral head of the quadricep muscles. That's right along here. Not really worrying about the iliotibial band much. I mean, you don't see a lot of interaction with that. You got a little bulge here on the front area right here, which is your tensor fascia latae, which, God bless me. It sounds like I sneezed or something. And whenever you say that, I always laugh. It's just such a weird, ridiculously goofy name. But it's your hip flexor, one of your hip flexors. And it's an interesting little muscle, but it connects onto that iliotibial band in that area. Here's the little, this is more like, this is a little sacral, where the sacrum kind of ends and you start the coccyx or the tailbone is kind of in there. Okay, we're kind of working around that. The edges are coming up pretty nice, pretty quick. And so I'm just over here now doing the same thing, blending a little bit, looking for how these edges are interacting with each other. Jump back over here, continue that little reflected light, look at how this edge is interacting on the interior aspect and how it's interacting on the exterior, meaning the outside inside. So I'm looking at how this edge fluctuates and changes as it comes down here, but I'm also looking at how it's changing on the inside deep within the shadow, because we have reflected light bouncing back up in there and it's interacting with, again, some interesting musculature. Don't need to hyper-obsess about the musculature. I take an opportunity to teach anatomy whenever I can. Number one, because I teach it a lot and I need to remember it. I don't remember it if I don't use it. So you hear me, gabbing a little bit about it all the time. It's not to impress you. Sometimes it may look that way, like, hey, look at Jeff just, yapping about how much he knows about anatomy. It's the way I train myself so that I can continue to stay tuned. Because there's nothing worse than having to go teach anatomy, and then all of a sudden it's like a thesis project to ramp back up. It takes like maybe next semester I'll be teaching anatomy or something. I have to start now, like 3 months ahead of time, studying it to save face when I go teach it because it's so freaking hard. So if I talk about it when I'm teaching life drawing, I talk about it when I'm teaching quick sketch, I talk about it when I'm teaching figure painting, I'm actually studying it or reaffirming it. And so when I come in to teach it, it's a lot less work for me to maintain or to get back to where I need to go to teach it well than if I don't talk about it at all and just kind of draw and don't say much. So that's kind of one of the reasons behind, not that I had to justify it or talk about it, but it's kind of nice to show people kind of what, why you do what you do. And I know a lot of teachers are going to be watching this stuff and wanting to kind of study what we do, because we are well known for what we do, and we are one of the better ateliers around. So, a lot of people are going to be wanting to get a glimpse into the inner workings of our system, and it really is no magic, and there's no accident. It's hard, just plain old-fashioned hard work. A lot of people always call me up and want to know how I created what I created, or how can they duplicate it. And I said, well, take about 20 years of your life and start a program, and use your own skills, and and start training people, and then selectively pick one or two of them and train them for 5 or 6 years, and then train them for another couple of years to teach well, and then hope they stick around, and then make it worthwhile for them to stick around by being cool and running it right. And then after about 10 years you'll have a teacher that's loyal, and then continue to say the right things and do the right things, and over time look for the next person, groom them, do the same thing, and 10, 15 years in, you might have 3 or 4 good teachers. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to just go hire a bunch of good people and start a school, and it never works, very seldom. So, it's hard. It's hard. I've been through it all. I've seen it all, probably mostly in that realm. I mean, I've watched it, everything from you can believe. And it's been good. I've learned a ton about myself, about others, and, all kinds of good stuff. So, yeah, teaching is, a lot of people will probably see through this video series, this program, that we are the real deal. I mean, it's the way it is. There's not much to say about it other than, yeah, they work really hard, they're really good, and they communicate them, at a virtuoso level. And it's not arrogance, it just is what it is. And I'm the first one to say, I've earned it the old-fashioned hard way, and I'm happy, I love to talk to people about it. But it's funny when people do call me and say, hey, we want to start a program like yours, how do we do it? Well, here's how it goes, But it's fun, and I wish you all the best if you guys do choose to go on that route, and just always do it from your heart, and always put your heart out there, and be willing to share what you know honestly and openly, and don't hold back. It's hard sometimes, when you create somebody that's getting better than you, and you've got to really dig deep in order to stay honest with yourself and keep pushing them forward, and hopefully they keep pushing you because they're getting better, and you want to compete and make sure that you stay ahead of them, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes they just get better than you, and you have to be okay with it in some ways. And it's a good testimony to your character as a person. It's hard to do. It's a rare art that people, I always tell people, if you want a good teacher, make sure you find someone that wants to get you better than them. That's a good teacher. A teacher driving to get you better than them, and that's their driving, and whatever the reasoning is for that, that makes somebody want to do that, because it's not normal human nature. Human nature is normally to, well, I think it is kind of human nature, but a lot of times, all too often, you run into people that do, don't share what they know, and it's a shame. Okay, look at that beautiful little edge work. It really reminds me a little bit of Steve Houston, and Steve's really a big fan of his work. He's just a really strong draftsman, great teacher. He's another great teacher and just a great talent. And I've gotten to meet him a couple times and get to know him over the years a little bit, and just can't say enough nice things about the guy. Extremely knowledgeable, great figurative painter. But I love the way he ties together his shapes, and they kind of swirl around and insert. It's almost like Brangwyn, and I know he was heavily influenced by Brangwyn, but you see that during Cornwell's work. You see it in Soroya's work and John Assaro's work. These are powerhouse figurative painters, man. These are some of the better living and deceased, figurative painters that I know. The ones I was just kind of throwing out there. But yeah, fun stuff, good stuff. Okay, I'm coming down to the wire here, and then I'll come back and finish this off probably in a good 20 minutes or so. Maybe, we'll see. There's always more to do, but I don't want to take too much time if I don't need to, so we'll see. Yep, got about 10 seconds left, so let me just, always utilizing my time as efficiently as possible. Nice little. Okay, so let's take a break and stretch yourself a little bit, and I'll see you in a little bit.